Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Just before we get into this week's podcast, I'd like to take a second to say two things. Number one, thanks for tuning in once again. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for every listen, every download, every watch. Secondly, if you can take time to subscribe to wherever you listen to or watch us, it would be greatly appreciated, and it would do a lot for us and the show. Thanks. Enjoy this week's episode. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. I am Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health podcast. What's up, dude?
Hey, everything's good. I'm a little bit sluggish today. Well, first of all, I'm back to the land of living. I feel like I only coughed up like 30 minutes of phlegm versus like 5 hours of phlegm. And it's been drastically going down. So like yesterday was like an hour of phlegm. And then I'm only like at 30 minutes of phlegm right now. So like, I feel like progress. I'm doing way better. Yeah, progress, right? And I'm also excited because today was check-in feedback day. And you gave me 3,000 calories. So
3,200.
3,200 calories and heavy carb centric. So I'm doing really good today. So I got this nice Venti latte right here that's, got some good whole milk in there, and I had some snacks. So I'm pounding some carbs right now. So
it's amazing the impact that food has on someone. So for anybody who's listening, wondering what the fuck we're doing, essentially, because we're sort of quite deep into the cut and things are sort of stalling, what we're going to try is having one high day. I did give you the freedom as to when you wanted to do it, but did also make a suggestion on it. So essentially, tomorrow will be a push day for you, which is everybody's favorite day. I would assume it's everybody's. It's my favorite. It's your favorite. So therefore, it's everybody's favorite day. And I think that you will benefit
push day so
from...
Awesome.
Yeah, fucking right. I think you'll benefit from having the additional calories and how you'll feel in your workout tomorrow, essentially to sort of push the intensity of everything that you're doing and then sort of push you further into the deficit or further into the fat loss phase in the coming days after that. So I'm excited to see as essentially it's another tool in the toolbox that we can utilize. So it'll be a good sort of additional part of the experiment.
What was interesting about last week to this week, so, we always talk about caloric surplus and deficits and, calorie tracking and what that means for your body. At the end of the day, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, and the science backs this, we've heard various, PhDs from, obviously Huberman, Stanford, as well as other PhDs from different places, talk about it is at the end of the day, calories in versus calories out. Our bodies burn calories. Less calories we produce, the more we release our fat stores, the more we can shed our weight, the more we increase, the more we can do those. Anyways, last week I was sick, obviously. And so, my eating habits were kind of all over the place. So I stood pretty stationary. I didn't get my steps in, so less active calorie burn right there, right? The more steps you produce, the more calories you burn. And those are things that we track consistently to understand how many calories we're doing a day. And then on top of that, didn't go to Orange Theory twice a week. So my cardio levels and my total daily energy expenditure combined throughout the whole week was substantially lower than it normally would have been. And because of that, I didn't lose any weight. I stayed pretty consistent as far as the weight is concerned. And then, of course, yesterday, I go to Orange Theory. I've been to Orange Theory. I went Wednesday. I went Monday. I've been doing my lifts. I've had some great lifting days, and I lost 2 pounds. So it's all about the balance of what you do, the tracking and making tweaks. And excited to see how I feel tomorrow because push day is the best day period ever. And I'm definitely going to get 125-pound dumbbells for 6 is what I'm shooting for. So
I looked at the 132-pound ones in the gym yesterday, and I was like working my way up as I did the last time, and I was like, you know what? No, this would be stupid. This is a stupid thing to do. I'm like, I do not until I have been beaten. I do not need to do this. So whenever that time comes, then I'll be good to go on that front. But I would say you should, with the additional calories and with the additional fuel in your system, you should definitely be hitting PRs tomorrow for sure. And I think that's one thing that I want to touch on just about what you're saying, and I say this quite a lot in people's check-ins, like exactly what you're saying there. Last week, we essentially weren't ticking every single box 100%. So things sort of stalled out. And the way that I sort of look at things across the board is I like to run things on like quite fine margins. And what I mean by that is we don't like to go super extreme one way or the other. So it's not like massive amounts of output or like super low calories. So if we have this sort of like fine balance in between where we're doing a decent amount of output and we can still have a decent amount of calories, because there's such fine margins, if you're not necessarily hitting them, you probably won't make that progress that you usually would. So essentially what you're saying is last week you didn't make the progress because you didn't sort of reach those targets because obviously you were sick and whatever else. And then now this week, because you are meeting those targets, your body's responding the way that we want to. So long story short, in a roundabout way, number one, I was right. And number two, the science works, essentially is what we're saying.
It just works. You know, it just works because it is the science of how our bodies work, right? And all of these things, it's interesting because the more I learn about our bodies, the more I'm fascinated. Like I was listening to the Huberman's Lab podcast that just came out recently, this last week, and it was with I'll have to find the name of the PhD, but he had come back. He was another speaker before in the past, and had come back. It was and he was really great. It was Dr. Kyle Gillette talking, and he specializes in hormone optimization in males. And you know, he started breaking down the differences in our receptors, like how we have estrogen receptors, androgen receptors, all these different things in our bodies and how they operate, and what certain supplements do and those types of things. But at the end of the day, like, what I've learned more about our bodies, like, you always talk about fueling our bodies appropriately. And the first thing that you typically do when you sign up with Ben is you'll probably increase your calories from what you're currently eating today. And because you're probably not eating enough calories. And
then you'll go, I think I've made a mistake. This is I'm in the wrong place.
That's the very first thing I thought. I'm like, wait a minute. Does this guy know what the fuck he's talking about? Because this seems really wrong. And, it's funny because the more you learn about your body, the more amazing it really is. So if you starve yourself completely, what's going to happen is you're going to feel like total shit. Your body actually reduces its ability to produce energy. So things that you might have done before, like, just shaking your knee, for example, can generate anywhere between 600 and 800 calories a day. Now, I'm not saying you need to shake your knee all the time, but there's actually people, it's something like, staggering, like 50% of the population just shakes their knee all the time throughout the day to expunge energy. It's just a natural twitch that a lot of people do. And that, you commonly see people that considered that have high metabolism are actually people that typically just shake their knee more. They burn 600 to 800 more calories a day just based on shaking their knee. So when you start to take away the calories and you starve yourself, your body goes into starvation mode. So it makes you feel like crap. It's like, hey, you need to eat. And all of a sudden now you're miserable. All you can think about is food. Your body's all it can think about is food. Yes, it has to release fat stores, but it's not going to do it in a very methodical way. It's going to try to hold on to that as much as possible. And you're not going to want to produce when you go to the gym or do other things. So we have to time our meals appropriately to give us the most amount of energy production and recovery. So when we're going out and doing cardio, for example, I personally do fasted cardio. There's a lot of great benefits for that. Especially there's studies that show that if you do fasted cardio, the time it takes for your body to go into a mode to start to release the fat stores in your body is substantially lower. It's sub 60 minutes, so it's typically 40 minutes versus anywhere between 60 minutes to an hour and a half if you're have food in your stomach. So fasted cardio can definitely increase your body's ability to naturally release fat, but also you may not have enough energy for that. And I find that when I'm going to do weight training, I absolutely need to eat beforehand typically to get me enough energy to be able to produce and then eat afterwards to recover. So we can space out our calories throughout the day to maximize our energy levels as we're going through and doing things. But, at the end of the day, it's amazing to see the differences you have just by tweaking certain things in your body, always learning something different, trying something new. And then from there, kind of iterating what works and what doesn't. And then, kind of building upon that. So it's so much fun. So I'm looking forward to the, 3,200 calories today. I'm going to go, I might go to Skyline Chili today, get some chili,
caveat. Let me just,
there's a caveat.
I was very specific in
You're
the
very
macro
specific.
breakdown.
You were.
So it's not like, 3,200 calories and go and have a fuck party time. I want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. So basically I reduced your overall protein intake to make sure that with the additional 1,200 calories that you're going to have today and usually would, that your body can actually process and digest the food appropriately. like giving you a specific fat target because I want to make sure that we're getting adequate amounts of fat, but I also want to make sure that the majority of the additional calories are coming from
Carbohydrates.
Essentially, that's your main fuel source or whatever else. So, I mean, I think off the top of my head, it was 180 grams of protein, 60 grams of fat, and like 400. The rest made up of carbs. So it works out like 480 or 485 grams of carbs. So I would say, having been to Skyline Chili, I don't know if it's necessarily going to fit within that in terms of the amount of fat, because essentially it's just a bowl of cheese with like a spoonful of chili below it.
But I guess my check-in is 400 grams of fat, 50 grams of carbohydrates, and 100 grams of protein. Like, man, I fucked up.
Shit. But yeah, I do think so for me, whenever I do things like that, and this is oftentimes where I see people go wrong. And I do have one example of this where me and another Ben, I know it's hard to believe that there's another Ben, but we were both coaches in Gymco whenever I worked there on the gym floor, and both of us were coached by Callum, and we both did a photo shoot the same day. And when we were having our high days, Ben was out getting like fucking pancake stacks and waffles and going to Boojum, which is like a Mexican restaurant, and just getting his calories through those foods. So he was eating the same calories essentially. But I was just having more of the food that I knew that I process and digest as well. So I was having more oats, more Cocoa Pops, more muffins, more bagels, all the shit that I knew that I ate regularly. And there definitely was a noticeable difference in the both of us in terms of the shoot. Now, he prepped for the shoot for like 16 weeks. I prepped for like 3. And there was definitely a noticeable difference in the two photos. So there is a lot to be said. And I'll quote Helmy again, this, like, calories will determine your weight gain or weight loss, but how you break down your macros will determine your body composition. I think that is an important lesson. So while I want you to make sure that you enjoy those calories, just make sure you enjoy them in the right way.
No, fully understand that. And I was kind of kidding about Skyline Chili, but
no, you weren't.
I kind of was. It's a long ways away. If it was next door, I would have definitely did it. But no, there. And I will say, there's always a debate on fats versus carbohydrates and everything else. There's a really great podcast on Huberman that was a few months ago that goes into. It was with Dr. Palmer. Where was it? It was. I'll have to find. It was Dr. Lane Norton. No, Dr. Lane Norton. No, Dr. Lane Norton talked about. First of all, I think that one was probably one of the best podcasts that Huberman's ever gone through, because it was like a 4-hour podcast.
Can we just take a minute how unapologetic Andrew Huberman is? He's just producing podcasts that are like 4 hours long. He's like, just don't give a fuck. It's like,
no,
we try and keep it to an hour so people can actually listen and to digest it. It's like, you need to have it's almost like a part-time job, being able to absorb all the information that he's putting out. And I respect it, because he's like, I don't give a fuck. This is the information. You do what you want.
Dude, so that one I actually listened to twice, because there was so much information in there to go through. But what I really liked about it was, Dr. Lane broke down the differences between fat, proteins, and carbohydrates in a way that I have never heard before. So, a lot of people say carbs are bad, and for certain people, carbohydrates aren't good. Like, for example, if you're in a diabetes type of phase or pre-diabetic. Something like ketogenic diets will be absolutely amazing for you health-wise. Some people don't respond very well to carbohydrates, but in most folks, the large majority of the population, fat has a 100% conversion rate to fat. So when you eat fat, your body 100% uses that fat that isn't used to fat. It's a 1-to-1 conversion, so it goes right to fat. Okay, so protein is very different. So protein can be converted to fat, but in a really, really minuscule effect. So the more protein you eat, the less fat you're going to store. So if you eat more protein-centric diets, it's going to get broken down into amino acids, which will then get used to build muscle and to keep and maintain your muscle. So if you eat more protein and less fats, you typically will not have as much fat to store. Now, carbohydrates are, and the reason why carbohydrates get such a bad rap is because, we have some highly processed carbohydrates that aren't good for you, like sugars, for example, corn syrups, those types of things that are, not great for immediate spike of insulin. Those things aren't great for us. If you're eating cake and cookies all day long, yes, that's not good for you. But carbohydrates are a massive tool for us in our bodies for energy explosion. And the way he broke it down is carbohydrates will immediately be used for energy production in your body. Now, there's a difference between, complex carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates. But, complex carbohydrates, more of a clean burn throughout the day as your body digests it and use it for energy. And then, simple, more so immediate energy, which is why we do things like fruits immediately if you need it within a half-hour time period of energy. Carbohydrates can be a huge tool in your arsenal to allow you to have energy throughout the day as well as throughout your workouts. So, for me, and when you hear Ben and I talk, our diets largely consist of relatively lower side of fats, high protein, usually 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. That doesn't mean your entire body mass, lean body mass, so your muscle mass. And then from there, we supplement with carbohydrates for that energy production throughout the entire day. And there is a conversion between carbohydrates and fats, but it's still burning more calories to convert the carbohydrates to fats. So it's not a one-to-one. So if you're eating, 100 grams of carbohydrates that equate to, 150 calories, those 150 calories are going to take energy to burn to get it to a fat store if you don't use them. So, there are different ways of looking at this that isn't exactly calories in versus calories out based on macros. The macronutrients that you use break you down even more. So those are important things to understand as you're going through this and how you stay consistently energetic throughout the day as you're putting your body through a lot of strain.
Yeah. And that's, anybody who has heard us speak or is a client of mine who has struggled with hitting their protein target, that's why I essentially prioritize it as much as possible. It's like, I don't want to say there's not a limit to the amount of protein that you can have, but basically the more that you eat, essentially the better, to an extent, of course, but it will be converted in the right way. I don't necessarily like to go super specific when it comes to fats and carbs breakdown, but it is something that I point out quite regularly within people's check-ins and whatever else for 2 reasons. Number one, yes, the sort of the 1-to-1 ratio that you're talking about and how it's stored, but number two, for the value for calories, essentially. So anybody who's in a cutting phase or a reduced calorie phase, you get more value from having protein and carbs versus having fats, which is higher calorie value per gram. So there is a lot of method into the madness that I do sort of put out there. And I guess the ultimate thing is, it's good to be backed up by people who are doctors and technically know what they're talking about.
And I think that's the part that kind of blew me away, because like when we first met, and the story is correct, by the way, I messaged Ben. So Ben friend requested me.
So I was right on that too?
Yeah.
You had to scroll back to find that, like. Yeah,
but you friend requested me, and then I checked your profile. I'm like, okay, he's a personal trainer. I'll reach out to him. And it's funny. So I went back to the first message that we ever wrote together, and I think my message was like, hey, Ben, appreciate your friend requesting me. It's actually a really good opportunity. I feel like I got my nutrition under control and my macros and understanding my body, and I just need a little bit of assistance. And I had no effing idea what I was doing at that point in time. Like, I look back at Dave 2.5 years ago when I sent that message to Dave now, and I had no understanding of what the hell I was talking about whatsoever, like zero. So, but I look back at that message, and I'm like, you could have totally screwed the whole thing up, for me, and I could have totally failed. But, obviously, everything that you've said and put into the programs have all been validated throughout the years, not only from a transformation of my body perspective and how I feel, my longevity aspects, my blood work, my quality of life, but also, the science that's been coming out as well as the science that was already out validates all of these different things. So every time I'm on a podcast, I'm like, yep, there's another point where Ben was right. I'm not going to tell him because I don't want his ego to keep getting bigger.
I think actually one of the cool things that I've noticed recently as well is like, obviously over time, whenever we first started and people started to see your transformation, there definitely would have been a lot of people like, oh, it's just one person, like it's easy for him and blah, 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 and whatever, insert whatever other excuse. But now that there are a lot of more people who are like, 6 months or a year into the program, whatever else, who are starting to show their results and their success, it's like more and more people are like, all right, okay, so there's actually more of these people who are having success doing this. It's not like a one-off fluke that Ben looks that way because he does this and Dave looks that way because he does that. It's like, this actually works for the majority of people. And it's like, I maybe need to start paying attention to this.
Well, and it's interesting because, there was a person that, made a crummy comment early on in this process, when I was having a lot of the success, and they were like, oh, one person doesn't equate to success. You need to have your results. Not realizing, by the way, you've already had, countless people in your group that have already had a lot of success or whatever. And it was mostly a jab at me or something like that, which is fine. I got haters. It's
sorry, we can take it.
If I didn't have haters, then that means I'm not doing the right thing, right? But, you know, in the security industry, seeing specifically our industry, seeing the success of all of these folks, the motivation, the progress, the calories, you know, their weight loss or gained or whatever their goals, objectives are, it shows that it's possible for almost anybody to do. And when I say almost anybody, I would say it's anybody, but you have to want it and you have to commit and you have to do it, right? And we all have different ailments and things like that prohibit us from doing certain things. It's a matter of fitting it within your life and what you can do and what you can complete. And, you know, just today, you know, someone was in the Hacks group talking about how can I do more, right? You know, they were like, well, hey, how can I continue to add more? Because they want to do more. I love seeing that because it's so funny. Because when they first start off, it's like, oh, I can get away with, you know, 2 times a week. It was John. You know, I can get away with 2 times a week, or I can get away with, you know, maybe once a week. And they're like, hey, can I do 4 days a week, you know, and can I do this? Can I add this? Can I go buy the amount of equipment that Dave has right now? I'm like, you can do what you want to, you know, but, it's just amazing to see the progress of folks and success. And it just, again, continues to validate we have a good handle on correcting obesity. We have a good handle on correcting body image. We have a good handle on living a healthy lifestyle. It's just a matter of applying that to your life, right? And it has to be customized because everybody's life's different. It's no different than a penetration test. When you go into a penetration test for a company and you're hacking into a corporation, you know, that company is completely unique and different. So the techniques you have to use to hack into that company is completely different than going into a different company that maybe is cloud centric, or, you know, maybe is on premise, or maybe they have these certain types of things. So, you know, so different in security, we have to apply different techniques to different things based on our lifestyles and who we are and how we're built and everything else and how our bodies work. But it's all the same thing. We're still going to be successful hacking into that company probably. It's just awesome to see the consistency across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good analogy. I can't believe it's taken us 70 episodes of recording podcasts to have used it, but that's exactly it. And, you know, like I'm genuinely getting on calls now and people are like, look, I've seen the success you have with these people. Like, I need that. Like, I am overweight. I'm unhappy. I don't have any energy. I want to be bigger, whatever the goal is or whatever they're doing. Like, it's like, I've seen it and I've seen it time again. I'm like literally running out of excuses because these people have the same excuses that I do. You know, they work a stressful job, they have a family, they run a business, you know, whenever it might be. And it's like at the point now where people are like, right, what are you doing and how can I be involved in it? So it's cool to see on that. Speaking of the security industry and speaking of haters, I guess the opposite, you won an award yesterday.
I did. I was actually going to talk about that, but we got so derailed on how awesome your program has been. But yes, I first of all, thank you so much to the community. It was a community voting system. So people that voted for these folks and nominated these folks were the ones that got put up on stage and you know, potentially won or got added to it. And so I flew to DC yesterday afternoon, and it's about an hour and a half. It's about an hour and a half flight to DC. And I got Orange Theory in the morning. And what this was I got there was, I think, 10 categories. Everything from, you know, best book of the year, best podcast of the year. And I got nominated as, you know, the top 20 or top influencer of 2022 in the security industry. And the way they define influencer is somebody that's making a positive change and influence on the security industry for the better. And obviously that has a lot to do with the health stuff that we do here on Hacking Your Health and changing people's lives for the better. But also, you know, my drive is always to help others, share my knowledge, and to get new people coming into the industry, you know, people that are struggling, help them out any way that I can. I've always been that way and that type of person, which is why you and I get along very well. You're very much the same, you know, cut there. And I like to surround myself with people that are like that as well, that want to help others. And so I flew to DC and got there around 2 o'clock, got my Orange Theory in, so I was good. And 2 o'clock, and
did you check in a suit? I clicked on.
I did like check in a suit.
What the fuck? I actually was like, do I have a shirt and tie upstairs? I could go and do the feedback. And I was like, I don't even think I own those things.
Well, it's funny because I had to wear a suit to the event. It was like a real formal, you know, suit and tie type of thing. And so I flew to DC in a suit, and that's all. I didn't bring my backpack. I didn't bring my laptop. I felt kind of like naked, to be honest with you, a little bit, because I didn't have anything with me So I'm coming back the same day. And there was, I think, a total of 50 people that were nominated for top influencer. And I was selected as one of the top 5. So I was in the final 5 categorization. And then so they invited the 5 people to this event to see who had won. And I had no clue if I was winning or not. I did not assume I was winning it. And there were some amazing people out there. John Hammond was up there, who's an amazing influence on our industry with how he shares knowledge, how he presents information, how he talks. I got I've seen John's, YouTube channel all the time. I watch it all the time. He's a great source of knowledge, kind individual, amazing human being, kind of our next generation of awesome people, uplifting people from an influencer perspective. But I got to see John talk at ShmooCon, or not ShmooCon, sorry, at Wild West Hacking Fest. And I was just really blown away by himself, his personality, how he approaches things, how he communicates, how he motivates. So he was up there, and there's a lot of just amazing people that I respect in this industry. And they said, we'd like to announce the winner for this year. And they called me up, and I had won the top, influencer of 2022. So huge honor from Sands. Thank you, Sands, for that. And, I got to wear a suit that was nice fitting and everything. And I felt confident up on stage. I felt amazing. Although the podium was super small, so I had to bend over and talk. So I'm bent over and talking into this thing. It's so small because I'm tall, but other than that, it was fine. But it was a great time. Had a good time winning the event. So yeah,
good. Well, congratulations on that. I think at this point, they're maybe recognizing that you're actually a fitness influencer, and we need to sort of separate the security and the fitness influencing.
Am I going to go for fitness influencer of 2022 in CyberSec? I think I should be you. I'm just a follower there, but it's good to help motivate folks and hopefully change people's lives and make the world a better place, and leave the world better than we left it. But it was a good time, and I got back at last thing I'll tell you about that whole thing. I got back at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I opened the door. Aaron let me know that the alarm was on, which is fine. So I opened the door, and I get 15 seconds to disarm it, which is fine. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's sleeping. Dogs are sleeping. Everybody's sleeping. And I go to hit disarm on the thing, and you have to enter in your PIN code. And I go to hit disarm, and the whole thing crashes on me. And I hear there's the box for the security systems in the basement, and all I can hear is beep, beep as it's counting down the 15 seconds as my input is completely crashed. And then the effing alarm goes off and wakes up everybody in the house. Not only did it go off, I had to wait 5 minutes for the box to reboot so that I can then disarm it because it was completely crashed. So I had a nice event in the morning of grumpy kids being upset with me, but it was a great time. Great time.
Good. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that it was a good time. I'm glad you won. I mean, I wouldn't have voted for anybody else.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So,
yeah, today's topic.
What is it?
Well, are we talking about kickstarting our journey into health and fitness going into the new year, right? Because we see a lot of these New Year's resolutions where it's going to be a different year for me, right? We're going to go to the gym 17 times a day. We're going to eat 100 calories a day, and that's it. It's going to be kale. That's all we're going to do. And that's going to be what we do on a regular basis, right? And I think, what we're looking at today is building realistic expectations, both for people starting off, but also for people that are already doing their journey. What is your goals for 2023? What do you want to accomplish? And building out a plan to get there. Did I get that?
Yeah. So essentially I wanted to talk about goal setting. And I realize that this is probably going to come out at a funny time because it's going to be the week before Christmas. And I essentially know that sort of weird week in between is the time that people are like, right, what do I want to do in my life type situation? But I wanted to sort of get ahead of that. And it actually came off the back of, I had a call with a guy yesterday, and he was like, I'm just, I always think about how I want to start the year and how I want to end the following year. And I want to end 2023 in the best shape of my life. So I know I need to start at the start of the year. And I was like, that's kind of cool, interesting sort of thought process, longer term. So I want to talk essentially about goal setting. Yes, managing expectations, being realistic, not trying to totally take over the world in January and sort of fall off. And I think, ultimately for me, whenever I'm setting a goal, I always try and think, and I've mentioned this quite a lot recently because the training that I did for the mainframe for the clients this week was about routine. And the one thing that I kept saying was about thinking about your future self. And this is essentially what I do whenever it comes to goal setting. I always try and visualize the person that I want to become. And, what does that look like? Like literally down to the details, like what does this person do day to day? How do they think? How do they react in situations? Like how do they manage their training? How do they manage confrontation? Whatever it might be, like try and visualize this person as much as possible. So in line with that, I try and think, right, okay, what are the steps that I need to do to get closer to that? Because it's obviously an always evolving goal and it will continue to progress and whatever else. It's like, right, okay, what do I need to do or what do I need to start incorporating in my life? Or also what do I need to take out from my life that maybe has sort of held me back from doing these things? So I think that for myself, that's the visual side of what it takes whenever it comes to actual goal setting, is like, think about that person, what they do day to day, how they live their life, how they think, whatever it might be, and then break it down as to, right, okay, well, what are the steps that I need to do to get to that?
I think for me, looking at next year and goal setting, we have already planned that well ahead, right? Because we knew where we're at right now. And what I liked about the latest program that we did is you had I think you had probably 12 weeks already planned out, right? This is where we're going to ride from a deficit perspective. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we had planned prior to that, but we're going to come out of this deficit. We're going to go more into a maintenance phase around the holidays. And then we're going to start to come out of that and start to go back into a surplus. And then going into the year, start to increase calories, start to build up as much muscle, and then eventually start to do, but keeping it not a crazy bulk, keeping it relatively lean so that in the springtime, we can start going through a cutting phase so that in the summer we can, be looking good. So, it's like that type of planning it hits in line with my objectives of what I want to accomplish. I want to put on more muscle mass. I want, but I don't want to get overly big as far as, a byproduct of fat. So how do we balance that and, still gain muscle during this period of time and not lose those months? And then from there, taper down again in the summertime so that I could, go out there with the shirt off and, mow my lawn or whatever. So, those are the types of things that, you have to look at. And obviously I'm in a different position than most folks are in this. And you have to look at your next year's objectives and be reasonable with it. What I found in this journey is that nothing happens as fast as you want it to. Transforming your body takes a long time. And it's not something, you look at like Joey Swole or these big dudes. I mean, they're doing it for 10 or 15 years to get to and a lot of steroids to get to be something that big. Right. But I mean, look at the amazing body types that these folks have. They have dedicated 10, 15, 20, 30 years to building something of that type of physique. Right. And, if we were in our, 20s, this would probably be a lot easier to do. And they even say that in the Human Labs podcast, if you're already overweight, when you start going into puberty, that's your time to start kicking ass because you have the ability to really gear your body to be whatever you want it to be for the rest of your life. But if you don't, and you're in your 40s or late 30s or in your 30s or going into your 30s, it's going to take some time to unscrew all the stuff that you did. So you have to be reasonable with your expectations, and, to say you want a 6-pack in 2 months isn't going to work. Right. But to say that I want to have progress in these areas and track on those and have good metrics towards that, whether that's, visual, whether that's measurements, whether that's the weight, those are things that are absolutely obtainable, but don't set them too crazy to where either you burn yourself out, you're not able to stay consistent, or you don't get it, and then you're completely defeated. Right. And I think, those expectations are what we need to look at for next year and say, next year is going to be different because we're already in a system or we're just starting off, and we're going to start off small. We're going to build the habits. We're going to do the right things first. And then from there, we're going to start working on it. And, just know that it takes a long time for your body to build muscle mass. It takes a long time for your body to remove fat. It takes, and honestly, you should only be losing 1 to 2 pounds a week at max, unless you want to start losing muscle mass as part of that. So, and be miserable and feel like shit. So, those are the things that
doesn't sound too appealing.
I'm good. I'm good with that. I don't want to do that. I'm fine. So, make reasonable expectations going into next year and plan for things that, may not be accountable, but track yourself and hold yourself accountable to those that are realistic.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I sort of find a lot of success with clients with is exactly what you're saying about that sort of like planning in a block of weeks ahead or months or whatever it needs to be. And everybody across the board, no matter which program you're in or which type of client you are, I guess, has that sort of overview sheet of what is happening, immediately, longer term, and then what that sort of looks like. And there's two ways that I sort of look at it. I'll talk, what I sort of do with clients, and then talk about like what I'm sort of thinking for myself, because I'm off a call with Mike and I was doing the same sort of planning with him essentially. So essentially whenever anybody comes on board, what I'll do is I'll create like an overview sheet. Generally it's a 52-week sheet, but obviously it will extend if we go past that. And the first thing that I get them to do is have a look at the dates and plan any sort of shit show that you need to navigate, essentially, is the way that I put it. So holidays is obviously a shit show. Vacation has the potential to be a shit show. Travel for work, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever situation could potentially derail us, but also whatever situation that you want to sort of look and feel your best for, that we can work around or towards. And essentially what that does is give me like mini time blocks to work around. So what you're talking about there is we planned out, I think, what you say, 12 weeks or whatever it was. In that 12 weeks, there was a maintenance week in and around Thanksgiving. And there also will be a maintenance week in and around Christmas, because I'm realistic with the expectations. And I know, okay, right, we can push for 8 weeks hard in a deficit. Then you know that you're going to pull back for a week. You're going to go to maintenance calories. It's going to be a little more chill. Then we can push for 3-4 weeks, whatever it was, at a deficit again. Then we can move into maintenance calories. And I've done that across the board. And if it's people have, travel in February, holidays, vacations in March, whatever it is, that's the way that I look at it. And I think two things happen with that is, number one, you know what you're doing, and excuse me, you know how long you're doing it for. And the how long you're doing it for, I think, is the biggest piece of it. And this is, I guess, something that I've learned recently about myself working with James and whatever else. Like, if you told me that I had to be in a deficit for 16 weeks, I would tell you to go fuck yourself, because I know mentally I couldn't stick to it for that long. Whereas if you told me that I'm going to be in a deficit for 20 weeks, but every 5 weeks I'm going to have a maintenance week where I'll pull back and I'll have slightly higher calories, all day long. I could do that all day long. And that's essentially what I did with all the travel and everything that we needed to navigate coming up to shoot. It was much more manageable, because I know, okay, right, I've got 4 weeks here where I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to work hard. Cardio is going to be high. Steps are going to be high. Training intensity is going to be high. Food's going to be low. But then I have a week where I'm going to go and hang out with Dave in Cleveland. We're going to do some cool shit. We're going to eat some good food. We're going to eat fucking burgers and sushi and whatever. And it was much more manageable and realistic. The way that I'm sort of looking, I guess, for myself, for you also, and for a couple of other people within the client group, is I'm looking at the in real life, in person, we have health events that we have planned for the year. And for me, I'll speak for me personally, and you can chirp in here because I know that we're on a similar sort of idea with what we're trying to achieve. So essentially the next US based event that we're going to have is going to be in May. For me personally, I want to be as big as I can possibly get between now and then, because essentially the last time that we met, I was at the sort of, I guess, halfway point with a cut. So I was relatively small. I was lean, relatively small compared to what I was, I guess. I was lean. So I want to have that sort of comparison. And I know May's essentially, well, probably 6 months away, 5-6 months away. So I know what I can accomplish in that time. Then what we're looking at is, okay, right, as big as I can possibly get, as strong as I can possibly get, to sort of show the difference for anybody who was there and what can be achieved in that time. And then the next one that we will have will be in August time, and it'll give us like I guess it'll be 3.5 months to sort of cut back down. So get as big as possible between now and May, and that'll be the goal, and that'll be the focus around training, and then get as lean as possible for coming into sort of August time. And that's how I'll sort of structure. Then after August, the goal will be to begin to increase calories and sort of like probably run a maintenance phase for a month or so, and then begin these increased calories to sort of come into autumn or fall, depending on where you are in the world, then winter, and then sort of go through that sort of process and cycle again. And me even having that in my head, knowing like, okay, I'm going to push calories, it will present its own shit shows. It will be a struggle in itself due to calories and whatever else needs to happen. But I know that there is a time frame on it, and I know what I'm working towards, and then I know sort of what happens after that. So I think that I definitely work well in those blocks. And sort of how to manage that. And I know obviously they will be split in between times, because I will have travel or I will have whatever else coming up. But from a sort of zoom out overview perspective, I know what I'm doing, how many months I'm doing it for, and sort of what the time frame and what the goal with each phase is.
Well, having that experience, I think, to be able to do that is important. because you know your body, you know how all this operates, you know what you could push yourself through because you've gone through a lot of these experiences. What would you suggest to a lot of folks, that are just starting on this health journey, that are either brand new or just starting off, that could help them be successful with their New Year's resolution goals? I hate to call it that because, a certain time frame shouldn't be what you're focusing on, right? You have to look at this as, it starts now. What am I going to do to do that? But if you're just like, hey, I'm going to enjoy the holidays with my family, and then I'm going to lock myself in, what would be some of the best tips that you could advise the people getting into this to be successful?
First of all, I would say start now and don't wait until January. And I have to shout out a lot of people that I have taken on board in December, and a lot of new clients coming in December that are like a massive fuck you to the whole New Year, New Me resolution. If you are a sort of person that wants to enjoy the holidays, absolutely fine. Like, I fully agree. And I have sort of said across the board with all clients, like, I know what my expectations are for each and every single one. I am realistic, and I'm not expecting people to make massive amounts of progress between now and the start of the year. And yes, we will draw a line in the sand and start sort of fresh coming into the new year. What I would generally look at is look at the first 3-4 months of your year and look at sort of what you are working towards or what potential shit shows that you have, and be realistic with the time frame and sort of play about with the time frame. So if you want to do, okay, right, I'm going to do 3 weeks. If we break it down month by month, I'm going to do 3 weeks in a deficit to see if I can manage that. And then I'm going to do 1 week at maintenance and bring calories up. And then go, okay, right, the next time I'm going to do 5 weeks in a deficit and do 1 week at maintenance. It's essentially about understanding what you can tolerate as a person is the biggest aspect. And I say this quite a lot, that it's a case of, I know what I can handle and what I have to do because I went through this process with Callum however many years ago that was. And, that's something I want to give back to everybody that I work with, or, can educate in whatever way. But you don't know what you can tolerate and what you can handle until you actually push yourself and put yourself through it. So the thing for me would be, look at your year and think, right, okay, for the first 3 weeks of the year, I'm going to push hard in a deficit, knowing at the end of January, I'm going to take a week that I'll be at maintenance calories. I'll still train hard. I'll still do my cardio. I'll just have a slightly higher calorie allowance, and then go, okay, right, February. Do you have anything coming up in February? No, let's do the entire month of February where I'm in a deficit. Cool. First week of March. Like, use things like Easter or holidays or whatever it is. Like, just use these sort of times throughout the year, whatever you've got going on or whatever sort of holidays going on, to sort of navigate around that and just find out what your threshold is. Some people just enjoy, okay, right, I've got 10 weeks. Helmy, for example, maybe not a good example. But, if he goes, right, 10 weeks, I'm going to
Helmy is his own.
Yeah. He is his own type of person, 100%. But yeah, if he says, right, look, I'm going to diet hard for 12 weeks here, he can just robot mode it and just do it because he lives and breathes it. But not everybody thinks like that, and not everybody lives that life. And I think that that's an important lesson that I've learned. Like, I'm not in the same season of my life as I was whenever I could do those things. And I know that I need that, like, okay, I can push hard for X amount of weeks, but then I need to pull back to be realistic with it. And the one thing that I'll say time and time again is none of us are really under any time pressure. So yes, okay, we've talked about, I did a shoot, potentially you doing a shoot, that will be time specific, but day to day, people who are just trying to lose weight and get in shape, there's no time specific dates on it. So don't put yourself under pressure because it can sort of backfire with it. So look at what you need to do. Look at any sort of dates that you have that are sort of stick out, that, it's your partner's birthday or you're going away, or it's your kid's birthday or whatever, that you're potentially going to travel and know that it's going to be slightly hard, even work related stuff. And just work it around those and go, okay, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, I'm going to push hard in terms of deficit. Then I have a week at maintenance or 2 weeks at maintenance or whatever else. And then just sort of trial it out through the year to see, okay, right, can I push further than this? Can I do more than this or whatever else?
Yeah. And it's funny because, look at the holiday timeframes, not next week, but the week after, the week of New Year's. I'm going to Michigan. We rented an Airbnb and I'm taking the family there to go see my grandma. And, so I know that from Monday to Friday, I will be in Michigan, right? And I know that I'll be in maintenance mode at that period of time. And I know that I need to still get my lifts in. So I already have a gym that I called that I like. It's, a few minutes away, planning my schedule ahead of time to prepare for that. And then I know that I'll get my stuff in as I go along and do it, right? And there's already an Orange Theory that's, 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute drive, but I'm still going to do it. So I still get my Mondays and Wednesdays in, right? But Monday I can do, super early morning in Cleveland, drive to Michigan, and then Wednesday I can get my Orange Theory. And so I'm not sacrificing any of my time frames because of travel. And, even when I was, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago when I went to, this might be an extreme for people, but when I went to, basically I lived in the middle of like a park, with Winnebago, I brought my bench, I brought a portable bench with me and some weights. So, I still, focus on the health aspects, regardless of what the situations are, regardless if I'm traveling, regardless if I'm on vacation. Those are the things I think the consistency aspects is probably one of the most important things that you could ever remember, is that you will have results if you're consistent with it. Nothing we're doing here is rocket science. Like, yes, there are ways to hit muscles differently. Yes, there are ways to refine your form. Yes, there are ways to get more, 1% out of something that you currently do. But at the end of the day, if you're consistent with it, those foundational pieces, the learning, everything else continue to build upon each other, and you're going to be successful in anything that you do. And I love seeing, because it's funny, I love seeing folks ask questions about like form, and I see them, doing a deadlift with 2 45-pound plates on the side of it. And it's not funny because they're doing 2 45-pound plates on the side of it. It's funny because I went back 2.5 years ago and looked at a video of me sending you form feedback with 2 45 plates, 45 plate pounds on the side of it. And that was me 2 years ago, right? And you look at it and you're like, hey, I'm deadlifting, 600 pounds now. Cool. Because I've been able to stay consistent with that. I've been able to build upon everything I know. I have good form. I have good technique. I'm continuously improving on it, and I know what I'm doing because of the consistency aspects of things. So if you're going to go and do it at the beginning of the year or whatever your New Year's resolution is, or whenever you're starting to do it, today's great. Start off small, build those habits, be consistent with those, and do things that you can fit within your life. And the rest of those start to go into play throughout the rest of the year. You start to build upon those habits. You start to increase those habits. The biggest advice I always get asked in cybersecurity, how do I be successful in cybersecurity? How do I become, somebody in the industry that is helping the industry move forward? And the best advice I can give to somebody that has worked for me is that I make whatever I want to be successful in my hobby that I'm interested in. And cybersecurity is something that is my hobby, and I'm interested in it, and I enjoy doing it. It also happens to be my job. Fitness training is something I love researching and understanding. I go through, the way my brain works is I want to understand the science behind it. I look at medical research. I learn more about certain things. I listen to podcasts because I enjoy learning about my body and myself. So if you can make fitness your hobby, it doesn't mean I have days where I'm like, shit, I don't want to lift today. Oh, I'm dragging ass. I don't want to go and do this. But you're going to be more consistent with things if you enjoy what you're doing and you go through it. But again, consistency, I always say this on the podcast, I don't have an option not to go to Orange Theory or to others unless, again, I'm deathly sick and I'm on the bed and my body needs it, right? And even then, I'm like, I might still be able to go.
Am I going to go?
And if you listen to last week's podcast, I definitely didn't listen to my body because I blacked out doing a chest press when I was sick. So stupid thing to do. And so, listen to your body, obviously. But at the end of the day, like, take sickness aside, I don't have an option whether or not I'm going to Orange Theory. I don't have an option whether or not I'm going to go lift at 2:30 today. I don't have an option. I'm going to go do it regardless if I feel it or not. I'm going to go and lift, and it's back at biceps day, so that's like my second favorite day. So I'm not going to miss that.
You'd still feel. You would still feel pretty good. Obviously, with the higher calories, you'll still feel pretty good today. But just tomorrow, you'll feel much better.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where consistency, repeatability. You hear that from bodybuilders. You hear it from strength trainers. You hear it from power lifters. The reason why they're successful is because they have consistency. And if you can do that, you can be successful with anything in your life. And that doesn't go just for fitness. That goes for your job. That goes for learning new things. That goes for your family. Being consistent is the number one thing you could do to be pushing yourself forward in a positive manner in your life.
Yeah, and it comes down to that compound effect as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is probably a little bit easier for me in the past sort of 4 or 5 months, however long it's been that I did the shoot and whatever else. Like, because I had been consistent. And actually, I'll use the example of whenever I was talking about the photo shoot with Ben and Ben. I was able to prep for that photo shoot in 3 weeks because I was so consistent with everything I was doing up until that point. Like it's actually funny, and I don't know if we've spoken about this, but Helmy used to look at me like I look at Helmy now. Like I used to be the guy down to the Tupperware. I used to be like 100% on it. Like I used to be that, and he used to be like, "Oh, no, I just eat fucking pizza at the weekend," and like I had 10 bars of chocolate, and he would go down supplements, and he would come back. I was like, I had a whole box of protein bars on the way home, and I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you? But I used to be the Tupperware guy. Like I remember very clearly, and maybe there's some people who listen who remember, like I used to have 4 fried eggs every single morning. I used to have, my meal 2 was 250 grams of mince, 100 grams of avocado, some beetroot and some veg. I would have always had my oats. I would have had Cocoa Pops. I would have been in the gym with my Tupperware. I would have had it every single day. So for me in that time period, like I was so consistent with my nutrition and my meal prep and whatever else. It wasn't necessarily that I prepped for the shoot in 3 weeks. Essentially, I probably prepped for it, however many years I had been training, but in 3 weeks I really dialed it in. And that just literally came down to the consistency and sort of knowing how to manipulate the numbers coming into it. And, the thing that I'll always say is like everybody wants the secret sauce or the secret potion or the secret pill or whatever they need to do or whatever the secret sauce that we have going on with the Hacks group or the BC fam. It's like there is no secret sauce. It is just literally time and consistency. And I guess anybody who's sort of listening to this that wants to start out, whether it's now or New Year or whenever it is, like the one thing that I will always say for me that I find works best with a client is I will meet you where you're at, and I will be as least intrusive, and I will be as, I guess, lowest effective dose is a phrase that I always use. And what I mean by that is like I want to sort of come in and not totally turn your life upside down, because that's whenever it starts to become a challenge. That's whenever there starts to be friction, whether it's friction with work, whether it's friction with your partner or the family or whatever, because essentially everything that you're doing from a training perspective, from a cardio perspective, from a prepping your meals perspective, from a doing your steps perspective is time. And that time has to come from somewhere else. And you have to be willing to sacrifice the time of whether it's spending time with your family, spending time doing a hobby that you love, spend time like drinking with your buddies, whatever it might be, you need to take that time from somewhere. So instead of me coming in and being the guy being like, yeah, you need to train 15 times a week and I need you to get up at 4 a.m. because I need you to, go for a 10-mile run, and then you come back and you do your cold water therapy and you need to train for an hour and a half later in the gym and all this other shit. Like, it's like, right, what can you commit to? Like, what time can you give me now? And then you end up having those conversations like John in the chat earlier on. It's like, right, okay, I want to do more because I see other people doing more and I want to feel better, and I feel better in the stuff that I'm doing. So be realistic with the time that you have. Be realistic with the, what you can achieve in a day, in a week, whatever it needs to be. And just start with like bare minimum, because you will start to feel better and you will start to see results. Like if you are not doing any training at the minute and you have a sedentary lifestyle, if you get up and do even 7,000 steps a day and you train twice a week, you're going to feel better. If you do 20 minutes of cardio across the week, like that is going to move the needle forward. And whenever you start to move the needle, you're like, you know what, this actually feels pretty good. I want to do more. And then that's how you sort of get into the positive cycle. And then all of a sudden you have all this additional time that you didn't know that you had, because you're now doing something that you actually feel good and prioritizing your life. And that's, you're talking about making it something that you're interested in. That's whenever it becomes the identity piece, and it becomes part of your identity. And it's not, I'm going to the gym because I want to lose weight. It's like, I go to the gym because I'm a person who goes to the gym. Same way whenever you were away camping or the Winnebago, like you brought your weights and you brought the bench because training is a part of your life. And then, I used to get shit for whenever I was away on holiday or vacation, or even if I was just in London for 2 days, I would have always made an effort to go and train at least one of those days. Be like, oh, you're mad. Like, just go out and enjoy yourself. Like, I am enjoying myself. I just enjoy myself whenever I'm training in a different gym, in a different place. Like that is part of my identity and part of my person. So whenever you get to that stage, like it is, it's like you said, there's no second thought to it. It's no, like, you don't have the option to do your training. It is, I go and do it because it's part of my day. It's part of who I am. And I know that seems so far away for some people because they're like, fuck that. But with consistency and with time and with sort of creating these small habit changes over time, like you do get into that mindset of wanting more and becoming better week on week, month on month, day by day, whatever it is.
Yep. So I think what you're hearing here, and to, wrap up the pod, is that, at the end of the day, we all are at different stages in our health and fitness side, but who you are is defined about, based on who you are and what you do. And if you make, fitness part of who you are, you'll be successful at it. If it's a byproduct of things that you currently do and you're just bolting on fitness as a, thing that I have to do and it's a chore, you're not going to be successful with it. So think of it from a standpoint of, this is something I want to do. This is something I want to change, and I have to be consistent with it, and don't give yourself a choice. And eventually it will become a habit and part of everything that you do day in and day out. I don't know if I'll be able to consistently lift super heavy weights, 5 or 6 days a week and do all this stuff, as I get older. Right now I'm fine, but down the road, it's still going to be a part of everything I do, regardless of where I'm at. If I'm 80 years old, I still want to be able to deadlift,
I'll be still getting your check-ins.
But yeah, but it's still something that, I want to continue on for the rest of my life, because I know it's going to allow me to live longer. It's going to allow me to be happier through my, from a quality of life perspective, more energy to be there for my family. And I love doing it. I love the success of competing with myself and beating myself up and feeling, stressed. And I saw a meme the other day that laughed my ass off. It was like this big dude, big muscular dude, looks badass, somebody you wouldn't want to mess with. And there was this skinny guy that was, mouthing off to the big guy. And I think the meme said something to the effect of, there's a good chance that the skinny guy is going to whoop the shit out of the big guy because he probably just trained legs day. And he's probably, because he's sore as hell, and it's funny because I think about that all the time where I'm like, yeah, as I get bigger, people are probably like, oh, this dude's, can whoop someone's ass. I'm like, listen, man, I just got done working two hours in the gym. I'm exhausted. There's no chance of me whooping anybody's ass right now. So, yeah.
But I think another point to sort of note, like you saying about like everything you're doing now is fine. What you can put your body through is probably not what you ever thought you would be able to. And I think if you get your head around that as well, like, if you see training, cardio, steps, like all these things is something that's a privilege, and have that sort of mindset toward it, because not everybody can go to the gym and not everybody can train. So instead of seeing it as a chore and seeing it as a privilege, is something that you have a luxury of being able to do because your body allows it. And obviously the benefits that come along, I think that's a big thing that's often overseen. And sometimes if I can't be bothered, I'm like, oh, it's cold outside, I don't want in the gym's going to be cold and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, shut the fuck up and get out and go do it. Because there are people who can't, like, I genuinely do have those conversations. Sat here, I'm like, that's a defrost the car. Don't really know. Like, shut up, get out, get it up. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. And so wrapping things up here, be consistent. If you're going to do it, do it. There is no excuse for failure. Start to build small habits that lead to big changes. Don't go crazy. Listen, make a commitment to yourself to go to the gym twice a week. That's it. Start off twice a week, once a week. Commit yourself to getting 10,000 steps a day. These things will start to build small habits that you start to enjoy and do. And there is an inflection point on resistance training where you hate it at first, and then your body starts to enjoy it and wants it. So, there is definitely an inflection point. And as you start to, and it may take, for some people, it takes a couple of weeks. Some people, it takes a couple months. But eventually your body's going to start to crave and want that resistance training and for yourself to be better. So power through that, power through the DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness. I'm not sore usually the next day or day after at all, unless I've had some time to do it. I mean, my muscles are fatigued and I'm tired, but I don't get the massive soreness where I can barely walk up the stairs. Well, let me rephrase that. There are times where I can't walk up the stairs, but it's not because I'm sore. It's because my muscles can't work. Like the other day I was doing chest. I had some chest day I talked to you about. And I was to go get the protein from a top, and I'm like, this doesn't happen. I can't get protein. What am I supposed to do? Like, I couldn't get my hands.
Shelves.
Yeah. So I had Gavin come in and get my protein out because I couldn't lift myself up to get the protein. So, but it does get easier with time and repetition. It does get easier to frame your mind to do it. If you, there's a lot of science on this. Huberman's got a lot of great podcasts on building habits for success in fitness. Your body will resist it at first, but eventually it starts to become a habit. Your body learns, your brain learns, and it starts to become a thing that you do day in and day out. So just do it. No exceptions. You got this, and make 2023 the best year you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. And if anybody needs any guidance on anything, feel free to reach out to either of us. And most importantly, enjoy the holidays, enjoy Christmas, and we'll see you in that weird week in between.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying what we're doing, please share with your friends and family. We're at WeHack.health, Discord, WeHack Health, Twitter, We Hack Health. So, tag us. And we look forward to seeing everybody's successes and progresses. It's always great to see this community grow, and we appreciate y'all.
See you next week.
See you next week.